just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another podcast, The Fallout after Locky Galvin bombshell yesterday. Holy moly. And don't forget, next Tuesday, 6 p.m, the best bloke jerseys ever dropped are dropping. The best material, the best cut. You don't want to miss it. 6 p.m. next Tuesday. $99 for the Bloke Club, $110 for everyone else. Do not miss it. Also, grab some Grumpy Coffee from grumpycoffee.com.au. It'll arrive within 24 to 48 hours. Alrighty, let's get straight into it. Wow, so much news has come out since this all happened. So the biggest news coming out since was an article, I think, from Chamis. Basically, the timeline essentially is this. He arrived at the club at West Tigers. He was, I think, in the top squad. And Benji Marshall and the Tigers then went out and signed other halves in his position. I think there was also talk of him potentially playing back row as well, initially. And so that was the initial moment where Locky Galvin was a bit frustrated that he'd been, I'd assume promised certain things, signed as a half, gets brought to the club, then other people get signed like Fainu and Bud Sullivan. But then anyway, Benji Marshall ends up debuting him anyway. And then over this time, so at that time when that all happened, reportedly asked for a release. That they didn't grant it. He ended up making his debut, so it would assume that all of that is water under the bridge. And then later in the year, they're losing heaps of games. He goes in and asks for another release, and they block it. And then there's some quotes out there that are basically, him saying that with Benji as coach, he's quite happy and that he's going to be here for a long time under Benji. Something along those lines. That's the kind of, TLDR of the quote. But I struggle to hold a 19-year-old too much to quotes like that, just because, what's the alternative? What could he possibly say otherwise? Let's say he was this whole time he was unhappy. Let's say this whole time he actually was unhappy, and no matter what happened, he was always going to leave at the end of his contract. Then it's not like he can come out and say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to see my contract out, but I'm not a fan of the Tigers, and I'm not a fan of Benji Marshall as a coach." That would cause absolute carnage. That wouldn't be good for the club, for the team. So it's hard to there's certain things that you kind of have to accept when it comes to journalists asking players things, that they're always going to be positive and speak, because there's more to it than just them being honest. There's a team, there's teammates, there's friends, there's a club, there's games to win on the weekend. Anyway, so that happens. He asks for release. They say no. They seem like everything is fine. And then all of a sudden it gets to a point where not only, is he not even going to entertain the idea, his management asked the Tigers that don't even put a contract offer in, which is crazy to think. That just blows my mind. But I mean, that's how keen he is, I guess, him and his management are to move on from the Tigers. There's a few things I have an issue with. And you guys, I always try to, with my knowledge of being in the system, but also being out of it now and, dealing with clubs and, all that stuff, I try to be as open and honest and fair to both sides as I can be. But I'm just not... Look, Locky has every right, if he wants to go to another club and play rugby league for another club, then that's fair. You can't force a bloke to stay at a club. But at the same time, what I struggle to kind of grasp with this is that, this narrative of Benji Marshall can't coach... First of all, as a 19-year-old, he's too young probably to make that call. He doesn't have enough experience to make that call. And second of all, if it isn't him saying that and it's his management just trying to damage control for the kid and, put his side forward, unfortunately, Locky's going to have to come out and say that that's not what he thinks. If it isn't what he thinks. Look, if it is what he thinks, then, obviously he's allowed to think that. I just think it's just not right for a 19-year-old to be making that kind of judgment call. That sounds to me like other people around him are telling him that those certain things. I just don't know whether a 19-year-old has played enough footy and been, in an NRL system long enough to be able to make that big of a judgment call, especially with how much they've improved. For example, do you think Jerome Luai would go to a coach that, is just so bad that they can't improve under him, or Appy Coruscant or Terrell May? I don't think they would. I think there's no way they'd go to it if they didn't believe in the direction the club was headed. And then there were other things where it was Jerome Luai and Benji are really close, so it's more of Jerome Luai's team. And I'm just like, what? What are we talking about here? That's just all ego. And so that's why I just think that I don't think it's actually Locky Galvin saying this. I think his management's saying this because there's no way, Lachie, as a 19-year-old, you'd be sitting there going, nah, they're too close, it's my team. I just don't believe it. I think it's his manager doing damage control, and that's where I think Lachie should come out and just be like, mate, you know what, wherever that came from, it's not what I think. I think he owes it to his teammates and to the club to come out and clear the air with that. And I'm usually one where you shouldn't be reactive to news and that, but unfortunately it's from his side, whoever it is, whether it's management or someone, that's saying that. So it does fall on him to clear this up because right now it's representing him. And it's not a good look, and he owes his teammates a bit more than that. Because even if it is true that he feels this way, mate, they can still make the 8. They can still win the premiership this year. I know people go, but they could. Crazier things have happened.
Definitely.
And so even if he felt that way, that shouldn't be being released to the media, because all that does is hurt the playing group. All that does is hurt the club. When at the end of the day, the club has done quite a lot for Lachie, and yes, you can go back to those times where he feels slighted, where people were signed or not signed, but it's like, mate, you know, as a man, you've got to move on from those things. Holding on to things from 18 months ago is like, that's what children do. Like, it's not what a man does. And that's why I don't think it is Locky Galvin. I think it's his manager just looking at the situation going, how do I protect my client's image, when in reality, the truth is, I just want to go to a big club that's maybe about to win a premiership. I'd rather him just say that.
Yeah.
But anyway, your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, it's a lot of it doesn't really make sense to me. I think the whole, I think you bang on the money with all the manager stuff, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know Locky Galvin, but I've met him a couple of times, and he seems like just a sweet kid. Like, seriously, he does.
Saying stuff like that, like Benji can't code.
I can't imagine it. And I can tell you this, I'm certain that he didn't want this to get to the media. Like, surely not.
Surely not, because this smashes if it is true that it is purely, like, this is selfish. You've got a bunch of teammates that you're supposed to bleed for that can still have a really good year. And this could completely derail the year. And that's why I think it's not him, it's his manager. And look, his manager's job is purely about protecting his client and getting his client the best deal. So his incentives are totally different to everyone else's. But I think Lachie owes it to his team and the club to say, guys, like, I'm not sure where that came from, but it's not the truth. The reason why I'm moving on is I just feel I'll be better suited to a different club or whatever, and just be honest. And then you can move on.
See, I totally agree, because it's not the first time he's come out. Look, I'm not saying he's selfish, but it's not the first time he's come out looking selfish, because, you know, he's wanted to get releases because, as you said before, Caesar, Bud Sullivan, Latu Finu came to the club. Like, that has a selfish perception, even though it might not be him.
Well, from his perspective, though, if he was promised certain things, it's more along the lines of, like, I signed with this club under these pretenses.
For sure.
And then you went out and signed other people. But you've got to move on from that.
I'm just saying, this has happened more than once now. Like, it's becoming a thing now. So I agree with you that I think it's best for everyone that everyone takes a deep breath and he comes out and says something, because we don't know who's talking right now.
Yeah. I think he has to come out and clear the air, because it's unfair. The main people I feel sorry for is obviously the fans, but his teammates.
Yeah.
Like, those boys would have, anyone picks on Galvin on the field, your forward pack has your back. They're willing to scrap for you. They're willing to put their bodies on the line for you. All those boys that, taking hit-ups every week for their halves and protecting them on the inside and just bashing their bodies up, even if you felt that way, it just shouldn't be getting out to the media. It should not get it. So I think it would be best that he comes out and just clears the air, because I just don't believe he feels that way. Because what doesn't make sense to me, okay, in regards to people getting signed over you or whatever, yes, it sucks. And yes, you signed under a certain pretense. I get it. I've been there a million times, trust me. I'm a way smaller player that's going to have a way less career than what he's going to have. So I've been there and I've seen it. It's happened to me. But at the end of the day, he ended up debuting you. Like, here's a good one. I re-signed to the Broncos, and I was promised when I re-signed, you will start on the wing. The next year rolls around, and I didn't start on the wing. Someone else got signed, brought in, and started the wing. Then eventually, 2 games into the year, I got my wing spot, and I kept it. And and that was under Wayne Bennett. And so, like, as a man, like, yeah, you can sit there and go, oh, you did this to me, I'm going to hold on to it forever. But you got to move on from these things. Like, at the end of the day, okay, he changed his mind. Yep. Did he go back on his word? Okay, yes, he did. But I'm playing first grade now. So that's all that matters. Who cares about everything else?
Well, I mean, if you strip it back, would he have been playing first grade anywhere else from round 1 last year?
Well, definitely not anywhere else. And that's where I'm not buying this Benji can't coach narrative, because it was totally... So when he signed at that club, when he arrived, they were wooden spoon. The administration was an absolute schmozzle. Like, worst administration, arguably, in the competition. It was a disaster.
So I've gone through. He signed with the Tigers in the middle of 2023 for 2024, I believe. So it was in the middle of the spoons, basically.
Yeah. So he's signed then from just juniors?
I think from Para.
Yep. So because Para had already brushed him.
Yeah.
And said, mate, you're not in.
And then there was that idle period, and then he went to the Tigers.
Then he went to the Tigers. And so that's where I find it very hard to believe this whole Benji can't coach thing, because it's like, well, you had no issue signing with the club, knowing that he was going to be the coach in the long run. The club was in a way worse position than it is now. And all of a sudden, now that you have all the options, so when you don't have any options, it is okay to sign with the club. Now you have all these options. The club is no longer, the coaching staff and everything is no longer good enough for your development as a player.
And just confirming, it took a while to find because there's so much Locky Galvin news, but he did sign that 3-year deal back then.
Yeah. And so, but as I said, you end up debuting and you signed with the club when it was in a way worse position. Like, we're talking, who the hell would want to sign at the Tigers? And now all of a sudden, where they're in a better position, you're saying, your manager at least, or someone is saying that you don't believe in the coach and you need to go to another club to be, in a better position. It's like, well, the only reason you have these options is because the Tigers believed in you and gave you a debut. And that's where I just think that it's really important that he clears the air on this narrative, because his reputation, it's just not going to help his reputation. And that's coming from someone that he's more than within his rights to want to go to another club. Like, he really is. He really is. And so that's when this all dropped. I was like, yep, it sucks. And you saw on the show, yep, it sucks. And I can understand what the Tigers were strong with it and they moved on. And I could also understand, look, if he just wants to be another club, that's also fair enough. In a perfect world, I think that it would be great for him to give the Tigers an opportunity to continue to grow. Sure. But that's within his rights. And I said it yesterday. But then the news started dropping about, not believing in coaches and for his development. And it's like, as I said, there was no issue with the club when you had no options. There was no issue with the club before you debuted, when the club was in a way worse position than it is now. And so I just don't buy this whole Benji can't coach thing. And look, we don't know if he can or he can't yet. Like, we'll see. Time will tell. And that's where I think he needs to clear the air. Like, I don't think whoever is revealing this information on Galvin's behalf, I don't think it's doing him any favours.
Well, he also needs to clear the air, and I'm just going off what I listened to last night with the journos. But there does seem to be a lot of tension between Benji Marshall and Galvin's manager. And that kind of poisons what I think as well, because I'm thinking, well, is it the manager saying this just because he's trying to get a big deal? Is the manager saying it because he doesn't care? And, sorry, when I say doesn't care, cares about Galvin, but doesn't care about the situation because he doesn't like Benji. We just need some clarity. But I think the first thing you said earlier, his teammates are the number one. Yeah. And this all dropped yesterday. I don't know. I don't even know. They probably weren't at training yesterday, but certainly, what's it going to be like today at Concord?
Yeah, it has to be clear. I think that he can speak to them privately, but he needs to also speak publicly and make a statement, I think. Yeah. And I think that, I would hope that he isn't the one sitting there saying, look, plenty of young teenagers have had issues with coaches, gone home, been like, man, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with that. But I would hope it hasn't gone so far that he's truly just openly saying, Tigers aren't good enough for my development and Benji can't coach and that's why I want to move on. Because unfortunately, Locky Galvin has a huge future ahead. A huge future. He's an incredible player. And when we met him, he was a lovely young kid. But he doesn't know enough about rugby league yet to know whether the club is good enough for his development or Benji is a good coach or not. Because he's 19.
Yeah.
And that's where I get worried. He's being told by these people. And you could say, okay, come on, bro. It's obvious that the Bulldogs are in a better position than the Tigers right now. Look how well they're going. That is fair. But at the same time, the reality of the situation is when you had no clubs interested, to my understanding, there was no one interested. The Tigers took a crack on you. And when you had no options, that the Tigers were good enough for you then, now you've improved and you've become one of the best rookies in the competition. wouldn't it be okay to return the favour to a degree, or at least for a year or two, when they needed you to believe in them, even though you didn't have that many options back then, they believed in you and you believed in them. And so now, as they're trying to regrow and re-establish themselves as a good club in the NRL, you could argue, is it not only fair to then return the favour? Now, I understand, I spoke about it yesterday. Look, it's business, clubs. As soon as he stops playing well, there's no loyalty. They'll brush him and all that stuff. So, there is a reality of the situation where he got moved on from the Eels, couldn't really find a deal, and then the Tigers gave him. They really did give him an opportunity. It's not like he had all of these clubs after him out of school and he could just pick who. At least that's what I remember from our conversation. Because he went back and played like school or something like that.
Yeah. So there was an idle period for sure.
Yeah, there was an idle period. So it's like, they really did give you an opportunity. And also, the bit about Benji not being a good coach or whatever, it's like, well, you're almost, how do I say this? Like, you're almost like having a crack at yourself then. Because if you don't think he's a good coach, then you should also believe that his idea of debuting you is not a good idea. If he's not a good coach, he was a good enough coach to identify you before all of us did. I mean, I remember the review in that year when Benji Marshall started talking up Lachie Galvin, we were all like,
I was like, who's Locky Galvin?
Where's he come out of? And we were sitting there going, mate, way too early to be starting a season with a young 18-year-old in the halves.
Put it this way. We did the Could Be, and this is a bit of a laugh, but it's true. We did the Could Be Anything show, and then you all picked your Could Be Anythings, and Hammy, as a joke, said Galvin, and we all laughed at him.
Yeah, and then he turned out to be incredible. And so that's where I go, Benji saw that. Benji truly was the one that said, you know what? Okay, regardless of did he sign other people, that's what's crazy about that situation. The way I look at it in regards to holding that grudge of you signed me and said I'd have a fair opportunity, and then you signed all these other halves. If anything, that is even more belief Benji showed in you, because Benji's going, I just went out and signed Buzz Sutherland on 600K, and I went out and signed the Fainu brothers on a good wicket, and you're probably on minimum, and I'm still debuting you. Where he could have easily gone, I'm not going to look like an idiot in my salary cap and have Bud Sullivan playing in reserve grade on 600K. And so that's where I just think that it's really important that I really think that he should come out. I refuse to believe this is what a young 19-year-old is saying, and I think that it's people that are representing him to the media, I don't think they're doing him any favours. I honestly, I would respect the hell out of Galvin if he came out and said, if he came out and as a statement and said, hey guys, first of all, I want to say a massive thank you for everything the Tigers have given me. They believed in me when not many people did. They gave me my debut. I just think it's best for myself. I feel like I'm going to suit a few other clubs that I potentially have been looking at. And okay, of course Tigers fans are going to be pissed as, and they're going to be, death riding him and hoping whatever club he goes to, the Tigers go better. But at least he's been a man about it. He is just being open and honest about because at the end of the day, you can't force a player to believe in certain clubs. You just can't. And if he believes that, he's going to be better off somewhere else, there's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, that's just his opinion and his belief. And whether you believe he's being misguided or whatever, only time will tell. If he goes to another club, he goes really well. It was the right call. You look at the Tigers situation with Tedesco. He went to the Roosters, and although Tigers fans were devastated, it probably proved to be the right decision for Tedesco at least. And so, time will tell. The thing
is, we could be having this conversation in a year. There's less time between now and the start of Locky Galvin's career than now and when this contract ends. Yeah, it's just too long.
Yeah, and look, in Galvin's defence in this, it was actually the club.
It was.
That came out and said, he's gone, see you later, and we're not offering him more contract, blah. So, it's not really Lockie's fault. It's his management for saying don't even. The thing that I don't like is the management just going, don't even bother putting in an offer, because it's surely you owe them at least looking at the offer.
Honestly, in my opinion, I know it's not black and white rules, but you should have to give him to November 1. You're not supposed to talk to other clubs.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be able to just say no.
Don't even offer me anything. I think he owes the club that much at least. Look, and that's the thing. All that's been leaked is he doesn't think Benji Marshall can coach. And it's just I struggle to believe that because you had no issue with it when you were signing it a couple of years ago when you came to the club and he gave you the opportunity. And that's what I think it's really important he comes out. Now, in regards to what the Tigers should do, the Tigers have come out public and said they're not releasing Locky Galvin. I think that's really smart, but I would be immediately working at getting a player swap for him. Like, he absolutely, yes, the Tigers need to win games now and they don't want to win the spoon. I get that for sure. And Benji Marshall's a rookie coach. But right now, Locky Galvin's hot property. And the longer you wait to move him on, the less of a big player you can get in swap for him. Right now, if you just keep him in reserve grade, you're basically, it doesn't hurt your salary cap because he's not on a big wicket. But also, each week he's in reserve grade, the less of a star that's going to be transferring from. Whereas right now, there are teams that would be willing to trade one of their better players for a number 6. Yep. And it might be actually just a stepping stone. He might go to a certain club for a year and a half and then end up at a different club that he signs that big deal with. But I think that they'd be crazy. Like we talked about the Ben Hunt situation ages ago when he came out and said, "I just don't want to be here," and they just refused to let him go, refused to release him. I think that once a player says that, you need to begin to work. Okay, how do I get the best deal for him? Like, how do I get the best player possible for him right now? You might be able to get a nearly Origin level player to the Tigers for 2 years, for essentially 2 years. It's round 6. If you let Locky Galvin trade now, so I think the Tigers, they'd be crazy just to let him sit in reserve grade. Like, get something for him. It's over. It's over. And yeah, okay, you might not go as well this year without him playing, but just get someone for him. You may as well. I don't think you're going to get that good of a trade for him for just 1 year, but I think there are a few clubs that would go, because if you can get Galvin at your club right now for 2 years and you're a club that's sitting, top 6 or something, it could take you to a premiership.
It's crazy what it could do. It's 2 holes. It's a season and a half.
Yeah, it's a season or more.
It's more. It's 2 seasons.
It's
basically
literally 2 seasons of building into he might not be the main man, but he might be the final piece of the puzzle that you need to win a comp right now. And so that's where I go. You could get a good player that has too many forwards or whatever it is. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Would the Tigers have the power there? Yeah, because they'd be able to choose who comes to them, right?
Yeah, because they're just saying we're not going to release him.
Yeah,
and also,
nice.
The benefit for them is that he's not on a big contract right now. So it's not like it's smashing their salary cap for him to be sitting in reserve grade. But yeah, so I really do. For Locky Galvin's sake, I hope he comes out because, yes, the fans absolutely matter. They do. They're the ones that literally pay your wages. But also the players beside you. The last thing, unfortunately right now, for Locky Galvin, you've got senior players looking across at him and going, "You're 19 years old. What do you know about coaching and where a club is going to be or whatever?" The best analysts in the game don't know where, I was the only one saying stay patient with the Bulldogs, and maybe I just got lucky with that. Outside of that, who would have thought the Bulldogs, not this quickly, who would have thought the Bulldogs would maybe be a premiership right now?
Oh, please, no one.
Even the best analysts in the game didn't think
there
that.
were people in the Bulldogs who have openly said that we thought we'd get here, but we didn't think we'd get here this fast.
Yeah, 27, 28 or something. So, who's to say the Tigers can't do that? We don't know. They're already going really well.
That's what I was saying on the show yesterday. If I'm just literally looking at it, nothing more than what club should he go to, the Tigers make the most sense to me.
Yeah, it's a strange, and that's why what's so surprising is when I read that article, whoever the source was that Chamis was speaking to, I'm sitting there going, these aren't that crazy of reasons. If in that article, if you're gonna stick up for Galvin and try and help his image, give us. And there's some real he was disrespected and blah blah, and there's all these real reasons. Say those. Don't say, he doesn't believe Benji can't coach. Because what rugby league fan sits there and goes, 19-year-old has the judgment to say whether a legend of the game. As I said, I want to be clear. I don't think Locky Galvin thinks this. I think it's people running damage control for him. But the audacity and disrespect to say Benji Marshall, what he's done in the game, can't coach from a 19-year-old that hasn't done anything in the game yet other than have a really good first year. And that's why I don't think he said that, because I don't think Lockie's that kind of person to disrespect Benji like that. Think of it, just it stinks all around. And I don't think, And that's where I think, like, you know, we know that reportedly his manager and Benji don't get along. That's where I feel it's coming from, because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like it's coming from a person that doesn't like Benji. Because there's no way a 19-year-old, he would have looked up to Benji when he was growing up.
Of course he would have.
He would have been like, wanted to be like Benji.
His whole life is Benji Marshall, the first grader.
Yeah, so it's like the audacity for a 19-year-old to go, oh, he can't coach. It's like, what the fuck? Bro, what do you know about coaching? And that's why I don't think it's him. That's why I think it's really important that he comes out and says, guys, this is not true at all. I do think Benji's a great coach. You know, I love my teammates. I'm appreciative of what the club's done for me. But just for me personally, I wanted to test the market. They didn't want to be put in that position, which is fine. I get it. And then you just move on from there. That would be, I would have a lot of respect for Galvin if that happened. Because I'd be like, he came up, he was honest and said, like, because the thing is that I can understand why he wants to test the market. And I can also understand why the club doesn't want to be put in a position where they're you being used as a bargaining chip. And so he has every right to test the market and say, what am I really worth on there? And I want to make as much money as I can. Now, granted, you know, if that was my son and I was, you know, directing him on what to do or whatever, I would make sure and let him know, like, money's and everything and blah, blah, blah. And here's the pros and cons. And this is what the club did for you. And do you think you could, you know, maybe repay him for an extra year or so? Maybe you just extend for 1 year or something like that. But you can't begrudge Galvin for wanting to test his value. It's part of his job.
I got no problem with Galvin testing his value. It's just the fact that it's April the 15th. It was April the 14th yesterday, and he's allowed to talk in November 1.
Yeah, well,
that's just
in his defense, the club is the one that put this out there.
True.
But what does change things is the whole, don't even put an offer in, we're not even going to review it. Like, that's rude. That's disrespectful, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And as I said, I don't think because like that, when all the reports I've watched is they've basically said the Tigers weren't sure whether this was his management or this was Locky Galvin. And the indication they got from Galvin was that he was still open to everything. And so that's where I just think that, yeah, look, his manager, it's tough. When you're 19 years old, it's very hard to tell your manager what to do. I remember when I was 19-year-old, I'm going to be honest, like, it would have been really hard for me to go, don't do this, do this. Now, don't get me wrong, like, got to a point when I was about 21 where I was like, hang on a sec, like, this doesn't add up. What's happening here?
It still took you some time, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I felt like I was not being represented what I thought, I'd be 100% be like, mate, I'd be going to the club and the players and saying, guys, this is not what I think and this is not what I feel. So, people that just expect him to just, like, tell a grown man what to do, like, the power dynamic is very different when you're a youngster. But yeah, so I hope he does. I hope he does come out and say something, because right now, unfortunately, his reputation has just been smashed.
Yeah.
Like, there's not many ways I can look at this. Like, if it is true that he feels this way, like, I don't know. I came through a time where I would never say that about a legend of the game. Like, even if I deep down felt it, there's no way I'd be saying this person can't coach when I'm 19. And I just don't see. He's 19. Like,
look, I'm with you. I personally am 100% giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm curious. We might never know, but I'm curious to see how he feels about all this. Wonder if he agrees with what happened or if he feels a bit blindsided by what's happened. There's every chance he could be ropeable right now. I'm sure he didn't want any of this to come out. So I'm definitely going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But you're right. If he doesn't address this soon, then what am I supposed to think? What are we supposed to think?
Well, right now, unfortunately for Locky Galvin, basically the yarn is a 19-year-old has come out and said about one of the greatest players to play the game that he can't coach, and basically no matter what he doesn't even want to see their offer because he believes that the Tigers right now isn't good enough for his development. Like, that's the narrative that his manager has set up, which is like, it's not a good narrative.
That's bad.
Like,
yeah.
who gets around that? Like, and that's where I just think that it doesn't seem like it's coming from Locky Galvin, because the thing that just chops that whole argument down is, like, he was good enough when they just won multiple spoons and the administration was a shambles and Benji Marshall was going to be the long-term coach and you signed in 2023. He was good enough then, but all of a sudden now that you're the man and you have all these options, he's not good enough. that suggests to me that you're only worried about what people can give you, and you're not worried about what you can give back to people that have given something to you. And so that's why, having met Lachie, having spoken to him, I think that he's got a manager that, has come out, tried to sway the narrative in a way that he believes is the right way and the way that suits him. And I think that it would be, because, look, who knows? Like that quote, there's a quote going around from last year, long story short, basically saying that he's a fan of Benji and that if Benji's a coach, he's going to be there for a long time. That's basically the quote. Like maybe Locky Galvin actually does mean that. And he did mean that. And this has just gotten out of control from his manager's perspective. And his manager is just like, was playing super hardball to get more out of the Tigers. And the Tigers have just gone, no, we're not going to do this anymore. But the whole don't even put an offer in. You could look at that two ways. You could look at it from a way of like, don't put it in because no matter what, we're going to go to November 1 to see what's out there. Or you could look at it like, don't even put it in because no matter what, we're not staying. And I just think the club owes a little bit more than that. Like
the way the bitterness in their statement would seem like it was the latter to me.
Yeah. And I just think the club is owed a little bit more than that. Like, unless, as I said, if there was more to this story, I feel like that would have been in the story, Chamis' story last night.
Yeah.
But if the worst you have is, I don't think Benji can coach, it's like, well, unfortunately, you don't have the experience to make that call yet. Like, you just don't.
Phil Gould said it perfectly last night. He said
the same thing. He said, as a 19-year-old, you don't have the experience to make that call.
Yeah, he said that, and he's like, all he has to worry about is being the best 22-year-old for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Because your career doesn't start till you're 24 or something like that.
Yeah, it's just so, it's, I hope he comes out and clears the air because, he's gone from one of the most loved players in the comp right now to this will follow him around for quite a while. And I know, people will go, oh, well, let's say he does go to the Bulldogs and they go on to win a premiership, it was the right thing or this, that. Well, yeah, but if anyone goes to the Bulldogs right now, they're on the up. Like, it's like me jumping on a roller coaster that's already on its way up and then go and see I got to the top of the hill. It's like, bro, that was getting to the top of the hill whether you got on the roller coaster or not.
Yeah.
And so, if he goes to that club and, kills it, it's like, well, that club was already killing it. They're on top of the table right now. If he goes to Melbourne and kills it, club was already killing it, which is fine. But like to suggest that, he was the one that took them to a certain level, it's just not the case.
You said it perfectly yesterday. If he did the Joey Johns, he would have been one of the most beloved players of all time.
Mate, would have been honestly insane. And that's why I'm just so surprised that he didn't even just go, listen, let's just go like, even if he was just like, you know what, guys, like I want to wait. I'm not going to talk to any clubs November 1. Let's have some trust. Let's wait till mid next year and see where the club's at. Because like, what if the club is killing it mid next year?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I get where Hammy's coming from. And I genuinely felt so sorry for Hammy yesterday.
Mate,
far out.
boy.
But like, what if the club is top 6 next year? I mean, maybe it might be. We don't know. We just don't know.
Yeah. I reckon there's a chance, for
And, like,
sure.
Is there any writing on the wall? Like, because Eels have been tossed up. I'm actually getting worried about the Bulldogs though. Like I think that's all of a sudden become a real serious option. But then it's like, where do you put him?
Yeah, I reckon because Gus loves him so much, but the makeup of their team right now doesn't make sense. But he's got a couple of years to work it out if he stays.
Yeah, and so Eels, for example, he talked about coaching. It's like, well, that's another rookie coach. There's no more evidence that Riles can coach than Benji can coach as a head coach. Yeah, Riles has been an assistant coach, but he hasn't been a head coach for, Benji right now is, you could argue doing better. He's taken a wooden spoon team. Right now, I think they're in the top 8. I know it's a long season. And so I just look across, I'm like, well, again, this narrative that has been put out by people that represent him, all you're doing is painting yourself into a corner of whatever your next decision is. People are going to go, hang on a sec, you're going to the Eels right now, and you said it was because Benji couldn't coach while you weren't there. Who says the Riles can coach yet?
Yeah.
And like, if he goes to another club that has a rookie coach or an average coach, it's like, well, you just left the Tigers saying that Benji can't coach. So really the only clubs you can end up at, if that is true, that it's truly about being the best version of yourself, is either Bulldogs, Melbourne Storm or Panthers. Anything outside of that, it's like, well, are they that much better than the Tigers right now? I don't think so. Like unless it is truly like, that's where, like, if it is the Eels, that's where I don't understand why they didn't, because because he shouldn't have spoken to anyone yet. If it is the Eels and he's like, I want to play with Mitchell Moses, it's like, mate, Jerome Luai's done more in the game than Mitchell Moses. So that doesn't make any sense. So again, all of this stuff, it's like this will be used against you in the court of law.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what this is when you put out those narratives.
Well, the first thing I thought when my development's not going to be good is Benji Marshall and Jerome Luai are pretty good halves to learn off.
Yeah, it's just, So as I said, I really do hope he puts out a statement. I think that the Tigers need to absolutely get aggressive in the market for a player swap. And now I'm just trying to think, like, who could they potentially target? I think another front rower would be hectic. If you could get another front rower at that club, it'd be hectic. And I'm just looking across, like, the problem is that, everyone's salary caps and everything is so locked up and all their key players are so locked up. There are very few players of his caliber that you could player swap with. There's very few $1 million players right now because that's alleged. That's his value because he's been offered that. Even though he's not on that yet, he's been offered $1 million, so that's what he's worth. And so I look across and I go, like, who could just swap? Like, what forward is worth $700,000 to $800,000 that you could swap right now for Lachie Galvin? And it's like, there's really not that many.
Yeah, not in April in round 6. Try to get before June 30. It's really tough. Like, who would be willing to leave? Yeah. I'm just let us know in the comments section. Is there any player? I do believe that the Tigers. Look, the spiteful thing is, put him in reserve grade, and you could be spiteful, but being spiteful has no place in business. You need to just go, okay, we've got this player. He's worth a lot. Let's get something for him. You gain nothing by making him suffer. I think Benji wants to win anyway, to be honest.
But the thing is that can you, like, imagine him running out looking across the block. If he doesn't clear the air, as if you want to play with a bloke that just said Benji Marshall can't coach.
You're right.
And also, this club isn't good enough. Because that's the hidden message in the article that Chamis wrote from whoever was talking to Chamis is essentially, when you break it down, this club is not good enough for me.
Yeah.
Which... Imagine being at that club.
I know.
You'd be like, what? This club's not good enough for you? And how can you continue to play at that club when you've just said that this club is as a 19-year-old? And so that's why it's so important he comes out and clears the air. He has to do it with the team privately, I think.
Yeah,
with
today.
The club too. But also he needs to do it publicly because the questions everyone's going to get now.
It's not going to stop.
If I'm a journo, the first thing I'm asking the Tigers in an interview is like, Locky Galvin has essentially said the Tigers are not good enough for his development. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, of course. Of course you'd ask that.
You'd be filthy.
Yeah.
As a player, you'd be like, fuck, you'd want to bite back immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas if he comes out and says, that's not what I think at all, guys. My decision was based around this or this. I hope so. I really do. Because unfortunately, if it isn't the case and he really does feel this way, I think it's a very self-centered way of kind of thinking.
And we're going to think that of him until he comes out and says something.
And also,
sorry, like just the general public.
The thing that I always go back to, and it happens to me all the time. Like like my life gets to a certain point, and we're all guilty of it, and we start like, oh, I wish I had this, I wish I had that, and then you look back to a time when you had nothing, and you're like, man, I would have killed to have that. So we're all guilty of it, but I just always look back to the club was good enough for you when you had no other options, and the Eels had let you go. They took you on and changed your life. So now you have all these options. The club is not good enough for you. You wouldn't be in this position. These options wouldn't exist if the Tigers didn't give you an opportunity. So there we have it. The Locky Galvin aftermath. I'm really interested. Let us know, who do you think that a player swap, could he land somewhere there for a year and a half and then go on to his club that he wants to go to? Going to be really interesting. Now the club has said that we will not be re-signing him past this date. Does that allow him to speak to other clubs? That's interesting. Does that release him from that November 1 clause because the club has said?
Yeah, that's a good point. True.
Yeah, that's another really interesting point. So let us know in the comments section, guys, what your thoughts are of like where you land. And just to wrap it up, I really hope he comes out and clears the air because I don't like the narrative of, oh, Benji can't coach. Like, that's a legend. Even if you think that, don't put it out in the public. Don't put it out in the public. He deserves better than that, Benji, in my opinion. He really does. Alrighty, guys. Next Tuesday, 6 p.m, the bloke jerseys are dropping. Don't miss it and grab some grumpy coffee. We'll go fuck ourselves. Thank you.